Hello and welcome to the OTB channel. Well, last week one of the big beasts of Linux was released, Fedora 33. It's been over a year since I've looked at this distro, so I thought, well, why not? Let's take a look, see what we think. See you after the intro. Okay, welcome back. First of all, an apology. I pride myself on releasing a video every Saturday. Had such a lot of stuff to do yesterday that I thought, well, it won't harm anything delaying it for a day, so that's why this is being released on Sunday. So we're going to look at Fedora, but before I do that, what do you think of the lights? The Philips Hue lights that I've treated myself to, and I thought it might look quite good. You can actually change it with your phone. Whoa! Okay, it's technology. Whether it makes that much of a difference, I don't know, but I thought it would create the right, how do you say it? Ambience, if you do it in the French accent. But anyway, it adds a little bit of character to what I thought was a very plain wall. And I like the fact that these are battery powered as well as mains powered. So if we're sitting outside next summer, which seems a long way off, we can actually put them on the bench when we're having a bottle of wine or something and get it to act like a candle. Anyway, neither here nor there. So Fedora 33. You know, it's interesting. When I first started using Linux back in 2004, although there were still many distros about, there were the big beasts. And the big beasts were Debian, of course. There was SUSE. There was Fedora. That had previously been Red Hat, or rather Red Hat still exists, but started to release Fedora as the free distro, whereas Red Hat became a paid-for only distro. There were other distros as well. I remember Mandrake. That was very popular. I think that morphed into Mandriva. And we had Mepis, of course, that was based on Debian. And that eventually, well, in its current form, MX Linux is probably the predecessor to Mepis, but it was mainly about the big beasts. And I installed Fedora Core 4 back in, I think it was about 2005. It came on a DVD attached to a copy of Linux Format magazine, and it was the first distro where everything worked on my PC. And I ran Fedora Core 4, Fedora Core 5, and Fedora Core 6 for a little while, until I was tempted away by this new upstart Ubuntu. And the rest is history, as they say. I didn't have a bad word to say about Fedora. I have to say, it seemed to be a time when there were new releases, new shinies coming out all the time. And I never really went back to it. Even when I reviewed Fedora 30 over a year ago, I did install it for a little while on a spare hard drive, but I always went back to Arch for my day-to-day work, or Debian, which, as you all know, I use for my work. Not YouTube, but my work. And it's funny, I think, because thinking all the way back to 2004, Fedora was one of the big hitters. There was SUSE that was one of the big hitters. And RPM distros seemed to be on an equal footing, really, with DPKG, Debian-based distros. There was always Slackware, of course, which, as always, is an underrated distro. It's a great distro. I like it a lot. I just wish Patrick would get on and release the latest stable version. But anyway, that aside, I think that RPM distros started to fade into the background a little bit as Ubuntu started to take prominence. Ubuntu was very much based on Linux for human beings, I think was its strapline, and it's hard to deny it went from strength to strength. And it's carved out the foundation of what we now see in the Linux world. We owe it a lot. Desktop Linux owes a huge debt to Ubuntu. And of course, we've seen spins of Ubuntu all over the place. You know, we've got the likes of Linux Mint, which, okay, it's not a spin of Ubuntu now. It's very different in many ways. But it's based on the Ubuntu repos, and you lose track of the amount of distros that base themselves on Ubuntu. So what's happened to the likes of SUSE and Fedora in the meantime? Well, they're the big beasts. They're still backed by large companies, just like Ubuntu and Canonical. We have Red Hat and Fedora. But they seem somehow to have sunk from view a little bit in terms of prominence. Perhaps that's partially due to the fact that we have so much choice these days, but they're still there. They've been going for donkey's years. They're stable as the day is long, and they're good distros. And they just don't seem to get the love that I think they probably deserve. So I thought I'd try and have a look at Fedora, the latest version, and see what I think. And I've got a little bit of a soft spot in my heart for this distro because it was one of the first that worked properly on my machines. So I really, really want to like this. Let's hope I do. But before we have a look at it, let's go and have a look on the split screen at the Fedora website. So you should see the Fedora website now on your TV or your computer or whatever you're watching this on. And welcome to freedom. There are 3 versions of Fedora, broadly speaking. The workstation, which is the one we're interested in, the server, and Fedora IoT, Internet of Things. Well, let's click on Fedora Workstation, and let's see where we get to. So, created for developers. Okay, so Fedora Workstation is reliable, user-friendly, and a powerful operating system for your laptop or desktop. Supports a wide range of developers from hobbyists and students to professionals in corporate environments. What about the rest of us? Is it just for developers, or can anybody else use it? I never quite know why distros pitch towards developers only. It almost seems that they are excluding everybody else. And this is perhaps due to its kind of corporate underpinnings, but I think that's a little bit short-sighted. But nevertheless, sleek user interface, complete open source toolbox, virtualization, and containerization. Okay, that's great. And here you can download the basic Fedora workstation. I mean, if I click on that, let's just go to the download page. Well, basically, you can download the 64-bit version, or you can download an ARM version as well, which is quite interesting. And it looks to me like they've got their own media writer, which makes it super easy to give Fedora a try, apparently. Okay, all good. Nowhere, though, do we see anything other than the standard Fedora. Now, like Ubuntu, the default desktop environment on Fedora is Gnome. Now, Gnome may be a fine desktop operating system, or a desktop environment, should I say, but you're all aware by now it's not my favourite, and I would prefer to try something else. And luckily, Fedora do have a range of what they call spins. You have to search for that specifically, and you have to go to the Fedora spins page. And you'll see here that they do a KDE Plasma version, an XFCE version, an LXQT version, a Mate version, guess which one I'm going to download, and a Cinnamon version, and an LXDE version. You don't see LXDE much anymore. I prefer the GTK look and feel, so I always liked LXDE. And SOA, what's that? Let's have a look. That is Sugar on a Stick. The winning Sugar on a Stick learning platform designed to fit on an ordinary USB stick. Okay, fine. Well, I'm not going to download that version. I'm going to download the Mate with Compiz desktop. I don't think these screenshots necessarily do a lot of justice to Fedora. They look very, very plain. For me, that doesn't bother me too much. I quite like a blank canvas. But there's not a lot of bling there to make it particularly clickable. And, you know, there's not a lot to be said about it. It bundles Mate desktop with Compiz Fusion, so you want the spinny cubes, you've got them. It's lightweight, powerful, designed with productivity and performance in mind, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So I've gone ahead and I've downloaded Mate. The Mate version of Fedora. What I would say from the outset is you get the impression that Fedora just wants to focus on GNOME, and I suppose the same is true of Ubuntu. But if we go across to Ubuntu Mate website, that just looks so much more developed, professional, clickable, you know, for a retrospective future. It looks like GNOME 2 Mate, let's face it. And when I used Fedora, it was GNOME 2. But as long as you like green, this is all good. They do it with Raspberry Pis and GPD Pocket, whatever that is. And there's lots of things here. You know, you can look further at the different features that it's got. There's a blog going on. There's the download page. Okay, 64-bit for PCs and Macs. Support. So community support, an official guide. And just pretty much loads and loads of links to tell you a bit more about it. To me, I have to say, it looks to me like Ubuntu are really pushing Ubuntu Mate, and Ubuntu Mate is a very popular distro. It's just a shame, really, that Fedora don't seem to have put the same amount of effort into doing that. So let's go back to the Mate Compiz desktop. To me, that sort of just fades in the background, so I don't quite know why they're not really giving it a bit of pizzazz. It's almost as if Fedora are saying, oh, we do spins as well. But forget them. What you want is our main desktop. And that might be fine. So enough of this. I've downloaded Mate. I'm going to have a look at it. I must put a caveat here that any conclusions that I come to are based not on the standard Fedora distro, but specifically on Fedora Mate. So, let's see how we get on. Right, so, first impressions. Well, I like the wallpaper, I've got to be honest. I knew I wouldn't like the icon set. It uses very much default icons, but they're neither here nor there. To be honest, I prefer something that, when I first install it, it looks like a vanilla blank canvas that I can then play with. But enough of that, let's just install to hard drive and see what happens. And here we go. It took a little while that to launch, but okay, fine. Welcome to Fedora 33. It's correctly picked a UK keyboard, which is good. And I've clicked continue, so what have we got to do here? So network and host name, okay, we can leave that. Time and date, Europe and London, it's already picked it. Localization, keyboard UK, okay. So installation destination, well, let's just go in and pick the only hard drive that we have here, which is the VirtualBox 32 gig drive. I'm not going to mess about doing anything special. I'm just going to let it do whatever it wants to do automatically. So let's click done and hopefully it picks that up. And no, it doesn't. Right, I'm sure that's something to do with me. Right, let's go back in there. So we've picked that. Now, what do I need to do from here? Right, so, I obviously hadn't clicked it hard enough. I would like automatic configuration, please. I'm not going to encrypt my data at this time. Let's select done again and see if it works this time. For some reason, I'm struggling here. It says I've selected. Hold on. Saving disk. Right, that's done it. Takes a little while. Which can just throw you off guard if you're not used to it. A root password. Okay, let's put in a root password. Okay, do I want to lock the root account? No, I don't actually. Allow root SSH login with password? No, I don't think so. And I'm clicking done. It's a very simple installer, but it does seem to take a little while after you click done to actually do anything. But okay, no user will be created. I think I'd like to create a user. So OTB, require a password to use this account. Make this user an administrator, which will be sudo, I'm assuming. And there we go. And I'm going to hit done again. And hopefully that does it. And there we go. So I've just gone for the automatic partitioning. I'm not exactly sure what it's done here. I'm just going to click begin installation. And it's obviously preparing itself here. And we'll come back once I've done. Right, so installation was incredibly easy. I wasn't required to input any other information, and it got on and it did its thing. It did take about 20 minutes, which is a fair bit longer than your standard Ubiquiti or Calamaris installer would do. But it's a few minutes, and I am on a virtual machine, so hey-ho. So here we are at what looks like LightDM to me, and I'm just going to log in. I think the LightDM is nicely themed, and I'm expecting to see what I saw on the live ISO. In fact, I have already opened this and just done a little bit of configuration. One of the things that, we're sorry, it looks like a problem has occurred. I'm not quite sure what that is, but let's just knock that off. One of the things I did find as soon as I logged in the first time was there was 280 updates waiting for me. So I got on and I did them, and Fedora uses DNF as a package management system. And I just opened a terminal and I did sudo DNF update. What else did I do? Once I'd done the update, I enabled the rpmfusion repository. Fedora, understandably, like many distros, does not ship with such things as non-free codecs and your NVIDIA drivers and all those sorts of things. And so most people, I'm just doing a search here, will search for rpmfusion, and we're just going to go to that in a second. And It takes a couple of minutes to sort this out, it really does. Once we go to the rpmfusion page, enable rpmfusion on your system is the first line there for users. And you can do this graphically, but I find it easier to just do it on the command line. So I pasted this first line into a terminal, and it installed the rpmfusion repo. After that, I pasted this one in to install the required package so that I could install packages using Gnome software or KDE Discover. Not that necessary if you're using Mate, but in case you want to install KDE as well, or you've even started off with Gnome. And then there's a few commands here to install multimedia software and a whole range of floss packages where their usage might be restricted in some way. So I ran through that process and all good, it installed. What I haven't got here is htop by default, so I'm just going to install that before we even start. So sudo dnf install htop. And we can see what the resources are that it's using. It's taking a little while to go off and get it. Oh no, it's just checking the last time everything was checked. And here we go. Is it okay? Yes, it's fine. Running transaction test, preparing, installing. And we should be good in a second. Right, so htop. And it looks like about 601, 594 through to 601 megs of RAM it's using. It's not the lightest system, Fedora. It isn't that heavy though, around 600 megs of RAM. What I should also say is I had a look at how it had actually set up the file system, and it's used BTRFS as default, and I'll show you. I can open up gparted, which is actually included by default in the install system. Whether that's a good idea or not, some people say yes, some people say no. I always end up installing it anyway, so it's not a huge one for me. And it's created a small boot partition of 1 gig, and it's left that as ext4. And then for root and home, it's using BTRFS, and that's where it's used the remainder. I also noticed that it doesn't have a separate swap partition, but zram is configured out of the box, which, whilst it makes things more efficient, may initially use more RAM than you would normally be used to. So let's have a look at what comes by default. You've got Compiz Fusion, which you configure if you like all the spinning boxes. You've got Pluma as the default text editor. Cura Lulzbot edition. I have absolutely no idea what that is. It may well have been installed when I was installing when I was installing the rpmfusion stuff. I'm intrigued now about what this actually is. Loading machines, Lulzbot edition. I don't know. A green octopus. Whatever it is, it's taking its own sweet time to do it. So whilst it's doing that, let's have a look through the menu still. So something to do with graphics anyway. Eye of Mate is installed. FileZilla out of the box. I always like to see that. I still use it. Firefox, HexChat, Thunderbird and Transmission. Some LibreOffice packages. Parole as the media player. And then your normal Mate tools. So all good there. Places, well, you've got your standard Places menu, and then your Preferences, your Admin. There is a firewall installed out of the box. Let's just see what it's using. It's a while since I've used Fedora, and I don't think it uses UFW, but we'll see in a minute. So it's just prompting me for my my password. It's firewall D. Okay. It's not my favourite, I have to say. I would much prefer UFW, but hey-ho. And now we have something called a user agreement launching. I wonder if this is to do with this Cura. It could well be. I just know it's incredibly slow doing whatever it does. I'm going to just find out what that is. 3D printing software. Oh, right, okay. Do you know, that's something I've never actually played with, but I'm going to just shut that down. There's not a lot to say about the plain vanilla Fedora Mate desktop. I quite like that, though. I do like to see a distro that doesn't over-theme things. So we've got essentially what looks pretty much like vanilla Mate with a Fedora background. And in fact, when I'm opening background, what have we got? Right, we've got the standard Mate backgrounds here, pretty much, and a few Fedora ones. What about theme? Let's just open up that and see what we're running at the moment. I think it's probably Adwaita somewhere along the line. No, Blue Menta. Standard, it's not Adwaita actually, it's the standard Mate icons. And, okay. I won't pretend I'm a big fan of the default look and feel, but that's neither here nor there. It's difficult to say anything more than that. It's a clean Mate desktop, and it's a canvas for doing your own thing. If we look in Control Center, we have all the normal things that you would expect, but we also have something called DNF Dragora, and I'm just going to open this up now. When Fedora used to use Yum as a package manager, I always used to install a little GUI called Yumex, which was actually pretty good. Now they use DNF. I believe DNF Dragora is sort of the default GUI. So if I wanted to install the Arc theme, for instance, there we go. And what about... Well, let's just install that to start off with. So let's apply. Right, I'm just going to minimize that now. And I'm going to bring up the themes menu again. And I want to see if we've actually got that theme now installed. So let's go to the themes. Let's go to custom. There's Art Dark. The required icon theme is not installed. Well, maybe not, but let's see what icon theme we have. Right, so we need an icon theme as well. So let's go into back into this and have a look at icons. Gnome icon theme, Papyrus icon themes. And you can see how it works. So let's just install them and see if I can get it to look a little bit better. Right, so I've paused that for a little while because just to install the Papyrus icon theme took over 5 minutes. Right, maybe it's a little bit like PMAC, and it's something that you would use to search for packages, but you're probably better off just using the command line and doing DNF. I had no problems doing a DNF update from... I'm just going to shut this and open it again. I had no problems doing a DNF update from the command line when I first got Fedora up and running, but DNF Dragora, I'm not immediately enjoying it. Right, so Art Dark is what I want. Arc Dark, yes, and let's have a look and see what we've got in terms of Papyrus. Let's go for Papyrus Dark and see what that looks like. Yeah, I think I quite like the look of that now. So it's relatively straightforward to get the thing looking as you want, which is never why I never worry about what the default theme is. You may not like this look. It's what I sort of prefer, the blue and dark. My first impressions, I don't mind the look of it. I don't mind the fact that it's RPM. I'm finding it a bit sluggish, if truth be known, but that could be something to do with it being on VirtualBox. But anyway, let's go and have a chat. So that's Fedora 33 Mate edition. What do I think? Really, really wanted to be blown away by this, and I'm not. It's fine as a desktop environment. I'm not bothered at all about the default look and feel, which is very blank canvas. I see that as a positive. But I found the installer Anaconda, even though it's very simple, a little bit clunky. When I was clicking on, selecting the disk, I had to do it twice to get it to pick up. Maybe a VirtualBox issue, I don't know. Cura, turns out that it was from my putting rpmfusion on it, so it doesn't come installed as standard. That was something that you install yourself or seems to install automatically if you paste all those commands into the terminal. So nothing to do with Fedora whatsoever. Yeah, it was okay. Memory usage, little on the high side, but we've got zram, okay. How about its performance? Well, it had 8 gig of RAM given to it, and it was okay. Didn't feel as snappy as I would expect from Mate generally. And certainly I've run Mate desktops in VirtualBox with that amount of RAM that have been much faster. They just felt smoother. But I mean, I'm picking at the moment. I'm just picking at the edges. I'm sure that once it's installed and it's configured as you want it, it's absolutely fine. Yes, you have to go all out and install all the codecs and things that you need, but as you saw yourself, that's a couple of minutes' work. It's neither here nor there. So it's still a big beast. I'm starting to wonder really, though, whether its implementation of Mate isn't really given the same emphasis and attention as the standard Gnome environment, which seems to be getting really good reviews. And perhaps that's the case. Perhaps I should have installed Gnome and then installed Ubuntu Mate after that. But I've come away not disliking the distro. I'll always have a soft spot for Fedora. But was there any compelling reason for me to change from what I'm doing now? Not really. But I'm quite disappointed, if I'm honest. It didn't blow me away. It didn't make me say, wow, this is wonderful. But neither was it bad. It's a solid distro. And if what you're looking for is a distro with big company backing and a large team of developers, and many of your comments over the last year have suggested that that is something you see as a benefit, especially when I've reviewed a small 1, 2, 3-man distro, you've seen that as a big disadvantage. Well, maybe you stick with one of the big boys. I think I was more impressed, if I'm honest, with SUSE, if we're talking about the big beasts from back in the day. Okay, so that's me, guys. It's been some strange weeks, it really has. I'm getting this cabin ready, but personally it's been a challenge, shall we say. And I think that's likely to continue. we're in the UK, and last night we got the message that from Thursday we're all going back into national lockdown for basically 4 weeks. What that actually means, I don't know. Whether it means furlough again, whether it means working through it, and I suppose time will tell. But anyway, guys, that's it for today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Please come and join me on Library. Come and have a look at us on the Facebook group. And I'd like, obviously, to say a special thank you to my Patreons. By the way, guys, those lights are the latest purchase. I'd like to thank Corbinian Schilderman, Robert Boudreau, Gary Moore, Aristotelis Papagiorgio, Stormpick, Stephen Cross, Entropy UK, Richard Wade, Mike Long, Dave Bird, Tiger, Philip Espy, Forrest Rhodes, Scott Russell, Patrick Dano. Thank you, guys. Your support is really appreciated. As well as those people who keep nipping onto my website and dropping me a pint through PayPal. Appreciate that as well, guys. Something that's been needed over the past few weeks, let me tell you. Have a great weekend, and I'm off this week, so I will probably produce another video this week. Don't know what day it'll be. Don't know what I'm going to do. It won't be a review. It'll be something else. So, see you after.